KSL News starts now.
Breaking overnight, the GOP's effort to repeal the Affordable Care Act fails in a dramatic late-night vote. The devastating setback to Republicans and how the president now responding this morning.
And an urgent travel warning. Officials saying conditions in Venezuela are so dangerous, Americans should stay out. Which airline is now suspending all flights to the country this morning?
And a murder committed at sea. And for the first time, we're hearing from neighbors of the Utah woman allegedly killed by her husband on board an Alaskan cruise.
But first, we begin with breaking news here in the Breaking News Center with an overnight shooting in downtown Salt Lake City. Here's what we know. This unfolded around 12:30 this morning in the area of 800 West and North Temple. Police arrived to find a victim in critical condition. He was taken to Intermountain Medical Center. Police say another victim in the area was stabbed and taken to a hospital in serious condition. Police stopped a man running from the scene. They don't believe he's a suspect, but they are calling him a witness, and he is in custody right now being questioned about what he knows. So as soon as we have more information, we will pass that on to you. At 6 o'clock this morning, let's send things over to Dan Guthrie now as we check on our weather. Dan?
And we're going to be talking about things drying out for some of the valleys here in Utah, especially in northern Utah, central and southern Utah. A couple scattered showers this morning. For the most part, they're on the lighter side, but they will continue throughout the morning hours. Temperature, Cedar City was sitting in the 70s. Now it's just dropped almost 10 degrees down to 62. We've got Delta still sitting at 70. Ephraim's down to the 50s. So there's some cool spots to be found once again this morning, or at least cooler than we've grown accustomed to for most of the month. And then mainly talking about 60s along the Wasatch Front, with the exception of a few spots sitting at 70. But most of these showers are going to try and fall apart as it moves into drier air. Some of them will do their best to hold on, but it's what's taking place in portions of Nevada and central and southern Utah we'll focus on this morning, and showers for everyone this afternoon. We'll talk about it coming up.
The motion is not agreed to.
The ACA is here to stay.
Well, this was perhaps the last real chance for Republicans at making health care reform the first big legislative win for President Donald Trump. But while you were sleeping, senators voted down a bill that would have replaced parts of the Affordable Care Act.
Senate Republicans have lost plenty of sleep over repealing and replacing so-called Obamacare, and even more last night as they tried to pass their skinny repeal plan. Joining us live from Washington this morning, NBC's Edward Lawrence with more. And Edward, it was a narrow vote that kept senators into the Capitol well into the early morning hours.
Exactly, Lori and Andrew. It was a very narrow vote. In fact, Vice President Mike Pence was in the building ready to cast that deciding vote if it did come down to that. It didn't. The bill failed 49 to 51. 3 Republicans defected, including Senator John McCain. You heard protesters outside the U.S. Capitol cheered when they heard the news that this bill was defeated. The president, Donald Trump, tweeting out 3 Republicans and 48 Democrats let the American people down. As I said from the beginning, let Obamacare implode, then deal. Now, the most dramatic moment came in the early morning hours when Senator John McCain voted. He held out his thumbs, pointing thumb down to show his vote, surprising many Republicans in the room. They even gasped in the room. The bill would have removed the individual mandate on people, forcing them to buy health insurance. It also would have done away with the medical device tax that both Republicans and Democrats criticize. Now, in the end, a majority of senators believe that this is not the way to go forward. This is yet again another setback for President Donald Trump trying to get a health care bill through the House and Senate. Now, experts are saying that it might be some time before Republicans could come back with another plan. Reporting live in Washington, Edward Lawrence. Now back to you, Andrew, Lori.
Even a lot of those pundits this morning saying that the effort to repeal Obamacare is now dead. So we'll see what happens in the coming months as maybe Republicans regroup and try to put forward something else. Edward Lawrence live from Washington for us. Edward, thank you. Meanwhile, here at home, the election to replace Congressman Jason Chaffetz is off to a costly start for taxpayers. Turns out all unaffiliated voters in Utah County were mistakenly sent ballots intended only to go to Republican voters, those who have registered as Republican. All of this is due to what they're calling a clerical error. That led to the misprinting of nearly 70,000 ballots. It will cost an additional $20,000 to correct this mistake.
And a related story happening tomorrow. Senator Ted Cruz will be in Utah in support of Chris Herod, a former Utah state legislator who's aiming to replace Jason Chaffetz in Congress. Senator Cruz will appear with Herod at a rally on Saturday. Herod will compete in the August 15th primary against John Curtis and Tanner Ainge. Cruz, who ran for president, of course, last year, has a large following in the Beehive State. Herod supported Cruz and worked on his 2016 presidential campaign here in Utah.
Well, happening right now, we have an urgent travel warning from the U.S. State Department for all U.S. citizens. That warning, do not travel to Venezuela. 4 months of anti-government protests in the country have killed at least 100 people, including this week's clashes in Caracas. Protesters opposing this Sunday's vote for a national assembly to rewrite its constitution. U.S. citizens could be arrested or detained with no evidence of a crime. As you know, Utah's Josh Holt has been detained in Venezuela for more than a year now. And parts of Venezuela so dangerous right now that even Delta has suspended all flights to the country. The company saying, quote, Delta will notify customers booked for travel after September 16th to discuss options. Andrew?
All right, Shira, thanks for the breaking news desk. Meantime, the Senate didn't get anything done on health care last night, but they did get a bill on sanctions passed, and it's now on its way to President Trump's desk. Sanctions against Russia. The bill gives Congress new powers to block President Trump from easing sanctions against Moscow. The House passing this legislation to enact new sanctions against Iran, Russia, and North Korea, along with the Senate there. We'll see if the president will sign it.
In world headlines, a trial date now set for the 2 women accused of murdering the North Korean leader's half-brother. The 2 are accused of smearing Kim Jong-nam's face with a toxic chemical at a crowded airport in Kuala Lumpur. This happened back in February. Now, he died shortly after this. The women who face a possible death sentence if they're convicted say they were tricked into thinking they were playing a harmless prank for a hidden camera television show. Now back to Shara at the Breaking News Desk.
All right, thanks, Lori. Well, also breaking overnight in Spain, dozens of people are injured this morning after a commuter train crashed into the buffers at a station in Barcelona. Take a look at this cell phone video. Officials say around 50 people were hurt. 5 of them are in serious condition, including the driver of the train. Right now, still no word on the cause, but it caused quite a bit of damage there.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Let's stay in Europe, Shara, and go to severe weather from overseas. Now, Germany has called out the army in that country to help citizens battle flooding after a dam burst earlier this week. Army helicopters seen here flying overhead, dropping sandbags, while firefighters on the ground piled them up to stop the river from flooding that area even more. Right now, many in this region are cleaning up, I should say, after heavy rains triggered massive flooding in western parts of Germany. Dan?
Yeah, we're talking about Germany. We've got stuff happening in Spain weather-wise. Now Turkey, where a freak storm pounds Istanbul with golf ball-sized hail and fast-moving floods. This video is pretty interesting. The storm was quick but powerful. It knocked the trees over, it damaged houses, left roads looking more like rivers. The summer storm also brought air traffic and public transportation to a standstill. This is the second time in just 10 days that heavy rain has wreaked havoc on the city, and this has been happening all over Europe. And we had our own flooding to deal with here just a couple of days ago, and it looks like things are finally going to start to calm down and dry out in some spots. We still have some moisture working its way into the state. Now, what's taking place from Ely stretching over towards the West Desert is moving into a drier air mass. So we're going to try and eat up some of that moisture and kind of keep things on the quieter side along the Wasatch Front. You can see a couple of scattered showers trying to push their way in to the Wasatch. But there is some moisture in southern Utah and central Utah, and this is where we'll see storms kind of on and off throughout the morning hours, both for south central Utah and southeastern portions of the state. But big picture-wise, we're mainly talking about partly cloudy skies today. There will be the chance for some isolated showers. We're going to detail that coming up, Lori.
All right, thanks, Dan. Still ahead this morning, new body camera footage from 4 police officers in a deadly car crash involving tennis great Venus Williams. What this newly released video reveals about that crash.
The fireball, the ride in the back left corner broke.
Hang on.
And people went flying.
And new details of the victims from the Ohio State Fair, as well as the history of the fireball ride and the horrific malfunction that left 1 person dead.